Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Elle.K here with another video. And for today's video, as I'm sure you can see from the title, I will be taking you guys through books that I think you need to drop everything that you're doing right now and read these books right now. These are my top favorite books. These are books that have changed my life or impacted my life in some type of way, and I absolutely adore them and I owe them a lot. So yeah, if you would like to hear about books that I think that you should read immediately, keep on watching.
Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly, look in my eyes.
Okay, so before we get into it, if you have yet to see my most recent reads video, I would highly suggest you go watch that video after this one, because I talk about some amazing reads that I've had for the year so far, and I think that you guys are really going to enjoy it. I talk about some awesome books and give you a little bit of insight as to why I love them. So yeah, let's jump in to this video because I have a relatively long list. I think I have 11 books, and I do have notes on my laptop because I don't want to really miss anything. So if I'm looking down, my apologies. I'm going to put pictures of the book up on the screen because some of them are a little bit older and I can't find them right now. So to save myself the heartache from having to go and like do a scavenger hunt in my house and probably go to my mom's house as well, I am just going to put pictures of them on the screen. It's just easier, it's faster for everybody, and you know, it's fine. Okay. So the first 4 books I'm going to talk about, I feel like you guys probably already know if you've been on my channel for a while, so I'm going to try and just like breeze through those 4. But these are all books that I absolutely adore. They're my favorite books of all time for sure. They've impacted my life or changed my life in some type of way, and I want to share them with you guys. So the first one is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So The Catcher in the Rye, I'm not going to go through a whole synopsis for it because it's literally required reading for, I believe, most schools in North America. I could be wrong, it was when I was in high school, that's how I ended up reading it. But it was the first book that I was assigned to read that I actually liked. So it just automatically, it opened this door for me with reading, where it's like, oh my gosh, there are classic books out there, there's classic literature out there that I can actually resonate with and relate to and draw something from it. Our main character, Holden, has like the most sarcastic and bleak outlook on pretty much everything, but still manages to find beauty in very, very small things, which I still admire to this day. It's like the original teen angst book, and I don't know, it has a special place in my heart. I haven't reread it in a while, and I think if I reread it now, I'd probably feel maybe a little bit differently about it. But I know that it's, like I said, the first piece of classical literature that I read that I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually read classics and, you know, maybe find somewhere to relate with, find a character to relate with within the classic books. So yeah, I love The Catcher in the Rye. The next 2 books are actually the books that got me into reading as steadily as I do now, and they were actually the books that I would say turned me into a reader. So the first one would be The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, and everybody knows The Fault in Our Stars. You know, Shailene Woodley's in the movie version of it. It's beautiful. And it follows 2, our main characters are cancer patients, and they fall in love. And that's all I'm going to say for it from there, because it is the most tragic love story, but the most beautiful love story. There are lines within that book that honestly could move mountains. They are just that stunningly written. This is the first book that I read that made me cry. This was the first book that made me realize that I could have such strong emotions for a book, strong enough to cry, because I'm a crier, but only for specific things, and it didn't used to be books. And it was the book that made me realize that I'm not a slow reader and I'm not a bad reader, but I'm a picky reader. Because prior to this book, it would take me maybe 3-4 months to get through a book that was 200 pages. And I attributed that to, I am a bad reader, I'm a slow reader, I should just not read. And then I came across this book, which was actually, I picked it up because I saw the trailer for the movie coming out, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'll give this book a try. read it in the span of like 3 days. And I went through a whirlwind of emotions while reading it. And this, like I said, it's the book that made me realize that I am a good reader. I mean, to be fair, like, what is a good reader? But it made me realize that I can be a reader. I'm just very, very picky, and I have to find books that grab my attention and books that will move my soul in some type of way in order for me to enjoy the process. So I will be forever grateful to The Fault in Our Stars. 100%. That is the probably more so than the next book that I'm going to talk about. That was the book that opened the door for the next book, which is the book that opened the door for every book. So the next book that I absolutely love is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So this is a book about a very well-off family who goes to visit their I want to say it's their cottage, but it's honestly like a small island that they own, because so the father has I believe it's 4 or 5 daughters, and on their like little island estate, each daughter has a house that is like their vacation house, and every year, like during the summertime, they all go and take their grandkids up there. And then there's one summer where they go and something tragic happens, and this was the book that made me realize that I could love and hate a book, and that was okay. Because as I was reading it, I was loving it, and then the ending came and I hated it because it wasn't the ending that I wanted. And then it sat with me for literally months later, and I was like, you know what? I fully respect that book. It sent me through just like a million different emotions within such a long period of time. But like I said, it's the book that made me realize that it was okay to love and hate a book. And this was the book that set off the domino effect for me wanting to just dive into reading more. I loved the emotions that I had with this book. It was so polar opposite from the emotions that I got reading The Fault in Our Stars. The Fault in Our Stars just tugged at my heart. It broke my heart. And this book made me angry and made me laugh and then made me angry again. So those were the 2 books that kind of go hand in hand that made me a reader, because it made me realize that books can spark those emotions in you. It's not just movies or TV shows or real life events. Books are just as important and just as a viable pathway to emotion as any other thing in your life. So yeah, even though We Were Liars is definitely not my favorite book, it's a book that I highly recommend, especially as a mental health read, because I didn't see it coming. Why are you not focusing? Hello? Focus. Sorry, I don't know why I went out of focus there. But yeah, it's a book that I highly, highly recommend. It talks a lot about mental health, and it's what I expect from a surprise ending. It's the only book for me that I've read that actually did an ending that I didn't see coming. So I'll give it that. I think that's probably why I didn't like it as much at the time, because I hate when I'm not able to see the ending coming. I pride myself on being able to predict what's gonna happen, and I couldn't with this one. So yeah. And then the next book that you better stay focused. The next book out of the 4 that I think everybody probably knows about is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. I have talked about this book a million times on my channel, so I'm not going to go too much into it. All I'm going to say is that it follows our main character, Imani, who is a teen mom in her graduating year of high school, and she loves to cook, and you're following her journey through her last year of high school. This book, the reason that I love it so much is because it gives me a sense of peace that I haven't been able to get reading any other book. It was like listening to your favorite song on repeat without getting tired of it. It was just, it's written in such a smooth, methodical way, and the story is just beautiful. It's one of those things where it's like, it's soul food, but in book form. So I highly, highly, highly suggest you read With the Fire on High if you haven't read it yet. The next book that I have on here is Hood Feminism, which is actually a very recent read for me. It's by Mikki Kendall, and this is a book where I think I talked about it in my recent reads video as well. You learn so much. Even if you don't agree with everything that Mikki Kendall says in this book, it taught me a lot, and I respect the work that she put in to like giving us all these facts. It talks about the feminist movement in a light that I've never seen it done, because, you know, first of all, before you read it, ask yourself, what's the first thing you think of when you hear feminism? Then read the book and then ask yourself that same question again, because for me, it was like night and day. We never, when we're talking about feminism, we never talk about who the feminist movement is actually for, because we think it's for everyone. It's actually not. We never talk about the women that the feminist movement leaves behind, or the problems that the feminist movement does not really deal with because it doesn't fit that feminist agenda, or it doesn't kind of create the ideal feminist. And she talks about what the ideal feminist is, or what it shouldn't be. And it's beautiful. We go through issues of poverty to education to police violence, and it's just such a broad spectrum of everything that she talks about, and you don't realize that feminism can be related in every single one. And it's not like she's reaching, it's actually blatantly in your face, but we just don't talk about it. And I just props to her, because it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And she narrates the audiobook, and I love listening to her tell her story, because a lot of it is her story. So definitely give that a listen if you haven't yet. The next book that I have on here is Black Girl Unlimited, which I think I read last year. Yeah, I read Black Girl Unlimited last year. And it's by Elle.K. Brown. So this is a magical realism, a YA magical realism, and we're following our main character from childhood all the way up to the time where she is like a young adult going off to college. And I really, really love books where we get to follow the main character throughout their entire life. I think you get such a whole and complete picture of that character. And what I thought I was going to get versus what I got are two very, very different things. I thought it was going to be this fun, fluffy, magical realism book, and it was not. Trigger warning for sexual assault, physical assault, drug use. Literally anything that you could think to go wrong in this book went wrong. And it just, we get to see, it gives a whole new meaning to Black girl magic. Let me just say that. This is what Black girl magic is, and it was beautiful. Heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, but beautifully done. Our main character lives in kind of a rougher neighborhood, but goes to school in an upper class neighborhood. And, you know, she's trying to balance the two. And it's so much more than even just that, because that's the synopsis that's given, but there's so much more. There was a live show that I did about it with, I can't remember, but it was with Sarah from Sarah's Reading Nook, and the Perks of Being a Book Flower, and a couple other booktube channels that did a live show on it, and I was a guest on that live show, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful book. There's so much representation in it. There was so much that I could resonate with it. It talks about colorism and just, you know, Black women being the forgotten people of the world. And it's just, but then it has this triumphant ending, and I loved it. It spoke to my soul, and it's one of those books where you're gonna read it once and probably never gonna want to read it again, but you probably should read it one more time. Okay, so the next book that I have that I think that you guys should read and just moved me to pieces is Dreamland Burning by Jennifer Latham. This is a story that's written in dual perspective, so we're talking with our main character Rowan in like present day 2020 2021 era, and then we're also dealing with our other main character who is living in the 1920s, and it's right before the Tulsa riot. The Tulsa riot. And I think I know that I preferred the historical story that was being told more so than the present day story that was being told, but I love how the two intertwined at the end. I love all the knowledge that was in this book, and I love the story all together. It was one of those stories that was really, really hard to listen. Definitely listen to the audiobook, for sure. Listen to the audiobook. It was hard to listen to because of the language that was used, but it was used in a respectful way, in a way that was necessary in order for the story to be authentic. And I think I think I loved it so much because it talks about a time and an event in history that is not widely talked about. You don't hear that much about the Tulsa riot. It's kind of one of the many, many, many historical events that is swept under the rug. And I'm so happy that there was an author who brought it to light and brought it to mainstream YA. And I think she did a beautiful job with that. It's a really, really moving story. And it keeps you guessing. It does keep you guessing. I guess I can tell you a little bit about it. Our main character, who is in present day, they're renovating, her family's renovating the pool house to a house that they newly moved into, and during the renovations a body is found, and we jump back to the historical point of view to kind of figure out whose body it is, and how it got there. And it's really, really well done. It's not really a mystery as much as it is a historical fiction with a little bit of mystery thrown in there, but like I said, beautifully done. You learn a lot, and it's just a really nice story. So the next story that I have here is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is another story written in prose. Actually, I think is it the first story written in prose that I have on this list? I don't know, maybe. But it's a story that's written in prose. I don't know why it keeps jumping out of focus, but it's very, very annoying when it does that. I apologize. But yeah. So Long Way Down is... it's brilliant. It's so brilliant. Our main character has to decide if he is going to take revenge on the guys who killed his brother, and he is deciding this within a 60-second elevator ride. And I don't want to say what happens as he's going down, but like the whole book takes place in 60 seconds. Like, keeping that in mind is just, it's epic. I love this story because it shines a light on a cycle of violence and just meaningless cycles that we're sometimes taught to fall into. I feel like it was a good reminder to really analyze the traditions that you follow and the cycles that you're in, and really think about if there are traditions and cycles that you want to be in and what is the meaning behind them. Because a lot of the times we fall into this way of life because it's what we were taught and not necessarily what we should be doing. And this book is a shining example of it. It's one of those books that you carry with you for a really, really long time. And I wholly appreciate it because it really provokes internal thought into your own life, into the things and the actions that you do. So that's why I love that one. And the next one that I have is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I love Nicola Yoon's writing. I think that she has this way of writing that is just really fun and unique and just straight to the point, but also explorative and detailed, which is a really, really hard combination to balance, and I think she does a really good job of that. But anyways, The Sun Is Also a Star is about our main character who is being deported. Her and her family are being deported back to Jamaica in 24 hours, and she meets the love of her life within that time. And it's just this very, very tragic story because, you know, you're rooting for this love story, but you know how it's gonna end. And even though you know how this story is gonna end, I think the reason I love this book so much is because it's an amazing reminder that the world is so much bigger than you. There is so much more going on outside of what you have going on, and the smallest things matter. What you say to people matters. How you look at people just in passing, it matters. And you don't think that it will. Like, the most minute things that happened in this book had absolutely enormous impact. And I love that the book follows so many different voices. So for example, there's an interaction with the main character where all she does is, I believe she either smiles at a security guard, or she just asks the security guard, like, how are you? And then it flips to the perspective of the security guard, and we get to see why that was so important to her. And it's like I said, it's a good reminder that there's so much more than just you, and be mindful of how you treat other people. Which is funny because I don't think that was the main point of the book, but it somehow was the main point of the book. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. It's just a really, really nice reminder to stay mindful of how you are and how you act around other people and how you treat other people. And the last book that I have on here is another classic, and it's The Alchemist by Pablo Coelho. This book was actually recommended to me by a very, very good friend, or an old friend, I guess. I haven't spoken to them in a while, but it was recommended to me by him. And it's just like this classic coming of age self-discovery book that is beautiful in every sense of the word. This is a book, it's the first book that I highlighted. It's the first book that I annotated, I should say. And I thoroughly enjoyed the journey of the alchemist, and just the way that book makes you feel is second to none. It is right up there with The Fire on High for me, with a sense of peace, but not as much as I got with The Fire on High. It's this self-discovery journey, and it allows you to take your time. There is no rush in finding out who you are and what you're meant to do on this world. And I love The Alchemist for that. So yeah. Okay guys, so that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved sharing my favorite books with you guys. These are the books that had an impact on me in some type of way, and I'm really, really happy that I was able to share them with you. Let me know in the comments down below what is a book, or however many books you have that have impacted you in some powerful way. I would love to hear about it and maybe pick up some new reads as recommended by you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe before you go, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.